Hello ladies and gents, this is Shrewikin, back with another classic video game review. The subject of today's review is The Prince of Persia, Sands of Time. This game was released on November 6, 2003, way back in the day by Ubisoft Montreal, which is located in Canada, for those that are geographically challenged. This game is considered a platformer, with acrobatics taking up a lot of the game. There's tons of fights, don't get me wrong, but you're going to be doing a lot of jumping around. It's not annoying, it's actually quite fun, and it's one of the things that makes this whole series last until today. Now, moving on to the gameplay mechanics, everything's mainly controlled by a few buttons, at least on the PC version. You do things like run along walls, do, flips off of poles and everything. It's all quite fun and actually highly immersive. The one thing that sort of breaks that is you can die from extremely short falls. I mean, I dropped 10 feet once and it really killed me, and that pissed me off. Now, one thing about this game that sets it apart from others of both its time and even today's games is the Sands of Time aspect. You're given a dagger called the Dagger of Time, which uses sands, the sands of time for the idiots. And you can rewind time, slow down time, and freeze enemies within time. It's all extremely useful. It adds a whole new level to the platforming, knowing that you can mess up and still actually continue on by rewinding. You can be killed in a fight, drop off a huge building, press the rewind button, and rewind up to 10 seconds of gameplay. Extremely useful. Now, beyond the original sand tanks you also get little slivers next to it on the status bar, which is the power tanks. With these, you can freeze enemies in time, do slow motion. Really cool. A lot of this is about manipulating time. It's not annoying, it's actually really immersive. Now, I'm going to move on to the plot here, so those that haven't played the game or actually care about not having the plot spoiled, I'd advise you turn this off now. Alright, so basically, the plot goes along like this. You're the Prince of Persia invading the Maharaja's treasure vault, where you find the Dagger of Time, discover its power, and you also steal an hourglass, which is filled with the sands of time. You go back to your homeland in the Vizier, opens up the hourglass, or convinces you to do so. You unleash the sands of time, everybody turns into some sort of sand creature, and they don't seem to die. The only way to kill them is to knock them down and stab them with the Dagger of Time to collect their sand. The combat is extremely good. You can do things like vault off enemies, chop them in half even if you slow down time, a lot of flips and everything. You can even incorporate wall runs. It's not recommended because it's very risky, but if you can pull it off with regularity, it's actually extremely powerful. The combat is really solid. I mean, I can't find much wrong with it, except for when you get knocked down yourself. It's extremely hard to get back up because you just got all these enemies that come around and cluster fuck you, trying to power attack you while you're on the ground. Blocking in this game is extremely needed, and that's a lot coming from me because I'm one that just doesn't block in video games. I find it to be retarded to just stand there and let them hit you. So when I say you need to block, you definitely need to hold down that block button a few times. So the combat, pretty solid. I mean, besides that bit, we're fine with combat. The plot line, however, is where the most of the spoilers are going to come in, because I'm going to have to talk about certain boss fights. So yeah, the linearity of the combat, well, it's not linear at all, it's almost exponential. It's like a staircase almost. You coast along at one difficulty, then it just jumps up extremely high for like a boss fight. Like the very first boss fight of the game, major spoiler, is your father, who is transformed by the sands. It's an extremely hard fight, and apparently it's one of the most annoying boss fights of all time in any video game. So it's a lot saying that. It does take a lot to beat it, but once you know what you're doing, you can definitely do it, and I'd recommend doing it solid instead of cheating, because it definitely adds the later combat skills you're going to need. Now, beyond killing your own father, there's things like a soldier's mess hall, where you meet these huge enemies that just can't be vaulted over, or anything like that. They'll sweep you off your feet even if you are blocking, and it's all just extremely staircase-like. I mean, you only run into these fights every once in a while. The game seems to become impossibly hard, and it coasts along at that level and will move up again. I mean, one of the most bitchy fights I ever got into was when you lose the Dagger of Time later in the game, and you have to fight about 12 of the hardest enemies in there without the ability to freeze them in time, go back in time, or anything like that. Now, moving onwards, you're saddled with Farah, which is a princess of the kingdom you invaded. I can't remember it now. But yeah, she is probably the most annoying thing out there, because not only does she go into combat, she can hurt you, and she can be the reason why you lose the game. If she loses all her health, game's over unless you rewind it. In fact, one time when I was fighting a bunch of guards in one of those staircase moments, she shot me with one of her arrows and killed me in the middle of it when I had no sand left and was about to win. So, she's very annoying, and I mean, I really would have rather they kept her out of the game, but the puzzles, the way that they designed them, she's needed, because some of them need 2 people. But yeah, you're just going to be pissed off by her more than anything. Moving on, the setting seems to be good. I mean, I've done a bit of study on things like, you know, Persia. The architecture seems nice. I mean, they at least get the social system right with the Vizier. The one thing that I don't get, but nobody probably cares, is the king of Persia would be a Shah based on the religion there. But, once again, that's just me being technical. So yeah, besides slight historical inaccuracies, the game is definitely solid. There was a soundtrack released for this game, which I find this weird. I don't know, maybe it's because I don't really listen to game soundtracks too much or pay attention to when they were released at least. Is that the Prince of Persia, the Sands of Time original soundtrack was released on November 3rd, which if you remember is 3 days before the actual game itself hit the shelves. Just a little something weird about that. Now, on to what other people gave this game. The scores range in percentile from 88 to 93 was the highest one I saw. It's obviously been well received and not so well received. In fact, the GameCube game from Moby Games gave it 75 out of 100. I personally cannot say that that's an accurate one at all. This game is almost as close to perfection as it can come. I mean, I would give this a 9.9. It's just you gotta watch out. I mean, this game might seem easy at first, and you will think it's getting really, you know, boring, repetitive, but then it'll just have one of those staircase moments, and you will be, I think, pleasantly satisfied with the difficulty. But yeah, besides the first boss, that's the one thing that turns a lot of people away. If you get past that first boss, you should be fine. Now, this game is just solid, solid, solid. I mean, anybody that has a decent PC, I picked this up like a week ago actually. It needs Windows XP Service Pack 3, so that might count some of you out, I'm not sure, because I never really paid attention to XP, I only stayed at Service Pack 1 the whole time. The computer settings are pretty decent, you don't need too good of a computer, but if you have like a GameCube, an Xbox, a PlayStation 2, extremely easy. I would definitely pick up this game for anybody that's into older games and ones that probably set the stage for earlier games. In fact, many of you may remember seeing in the news that a new Prince of Persia, just titled Prince of Persia, a game came out a good 6 months ago, I believe. It's not quite the same as the old one, so definitely pick up the old one, play them in order. There's an entire trilogy back here. Next two games being Warrior Within and The Two Thrones. All of them are good, but out of the trilogy, Sands of Time, definite win. Pick it up, try it out, and have fun with it. This is Shuriken signing off. Bitch.